your center front for the waistline buttonholes. So those are the two anchor buttonholes that you want to position. Now, keep in mind that the majority of the buttons on the center front are vertical. So if the button itself is a 1/2 inch, because we have our extension is 5/8 of an inch, but you want to have that little bit of extra room, so you want to do a 1/2 inch button. So position the buttonhole right in the center. If that's the bust line that you're measuring over onto the center front, the center of the button winds up right in the middle, all right? But the buttonhole is 1/8 of an inch bigger than the button. So if the button is a 1/2 inch, the buttonhole is 5/8 of an inch. So you want to position your buttonhole equally on either side of that center point. So one line. So those two lines are your buttonhole.
Are you just telling us this to know in the future, or are we going to have to tell this to the people?
Yeah, you're going to have to mark this on your pattern,
okay,
and then transfer it to your shirt.
Okay.
So when you go in, it's actually marked. You have to hand this in to them marked.
Okay.
Right? So the center of that is where the button gets sewn. So the top and the bottom marks are the buttonhole, but the center of it is the button, right? So the buttonhole gets marked on the right side of the garment. The button, single dot, gets marked on the left side of the garment. Right. Now, you've got one at the bust level, second one at the waist level. Again, 5/8 of an inch. One line.
Wait, is it always 5/8 of an inch? Or is it depending on your button?
Depends on your button. We're working with it. For purposes of this, just let's keep it consistent and just get a 1/2 inch button. All right. So your buttonhole is always 1/8 of an inch bigger than your button. When you start getting into jackets and coats and whatnot, and you start working with heavier fabrics, that can actually get a little bigger. You can go 1/4 of an inch bigger than the size of the button. All right, because you've got a thicker fabric and the fold here. So you always want to have. You always want to have an extension beyond the edge of your button. All right, so the two anchor buttons are the bust level and the waist level. And the reason for that, clearly, on the bust level, is that the tension of the bust line, if you don't have a button in the middle, it'll just gap open, that lovely one-sided gap. So you always want to have a button right in the middle to anchor the tension at the bust level. Jonathan. And then at the waist level. Okay, now to determine the rest of the placement, determine the distance between these two buttons, the two anchor buttons, the bust level and the waist level. And it's a difference of 7.5. So the one in the middle, let's put it right in the middle of that. So 7.5, what's half of 7.5 is 3 3/4. So 3 3/4. And then come up 3 3/4 from the top one. Down 3 3/4 the waistline one. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. All right, now, all of these buttons are vertical buttons. So I find the center of each, right, which I just did, and then I mark 5/8 of an inch. Of an inch. But the lowest one, that one I'm doing as a horizontal. So my collar stand, which I'll get to in a minute, the collar stand and the last button are always horizontal. All the others are vertical. So the horizontal one from my center front, and all of this marking is happening on my center front line, because that's the line that you want to position your buttons on beyond you. So your extension is 5/8 of an inch beyond your center front, but all the buttons in the buttonholes are positioned on the center front line. For this bottom horizontal button, draw a horizontal line, but you've got to mark the start and the finish of the buttonhole to hand it over to the technician who's going to be putting the buttonhole in. So the start of the buttonhole is 1/8 of an inch beyond the center front line. Mark 1/8 of an inch. That's the start of it. And what's the total width on my buttonhole? 5/8. So you can all see that. So all of these are vertical, and this last one is horizontal. And again, you're starting at your center front, and the buttonhole starts 1/8 of an inch over beyond the center front, and then work your way back and measure the total width of your buttonhole, 5/8 of an inch.
It's the same with each of the bicycles. We did the same thing with everything.
No,
No, the
these are all verticals.
I know, I mean the distance.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
all 5/8 of an inch. They're all 5/8 of an inch.
No,
Because the
okay.
button is a 1/2 an inch, so you always need to be a little bigger because you got to push it through, so you need to have a little bit of wiggle room.
So we went 1/8 up and then the total was 5/8 all the time.
No, what I did on these, on the verticals, was you just find the center, which is where you're going to actually sew the button in, and then you just distribute your 5/8 of an inch on either side of it. So.
5/8 on either side?
No, a total of
Yeah.
distribute 5/8 on either side. Yeah. All right, everyone with me on this? Yeah, you look glazed.